All right, here we go with OPM number 79, written this day, the 2nd of May, 2004, and commemorated this day, the 2nd of May, 2014. A little breezy out here. Yesterday it was quite warm, and I came outside here anticipating warmer temps, and it was warmer earlier in the day, let's put it that way. But I'm not complaining. It's a beautiful spring day here, and we're going to pick it up where we left off, which is this legend of Heraclitus, recounted by Aristotle and then retold by Heidegger. And I'm taking it up with these meditations as a way to think about not simply the formation of the learning community, but this modality of the sage. When the strangers accept Heraclitus' invitation, they cross the threshold and join him. In accepting his invitation, the strangers complete the horos of the learning abode and pass over into the nearness of the sage's dwelling. Their acceptance of the sage's steadfast openness was initiated with their consternation, their confusion, and frustration. They had anticipated something extraordinary, and despite what they had envisioned, this is precisely what they experienced. And this anticipation marks their preparation. Like Heraclitus, who was awaiting the arrival of companions to complete the learning abode and dwell with him upon the hearth close to the fire where the gods appear, the strangers projected themselves into the not yet, the possibility of learning from the sage. The confusion and anxiety they experience upon arriving to the home of Heraclitus signifies the abyss they must pass over in order to complete the horizon. Above we said the gift of teachability offered by the sage is an offering of what belongs to them. The gift is a returning of what is always already theirs. Here we have a better image of this turning around as a returning of what belongs to the apprentices. Here too we are offered a way to identify how the reception of teachability propels the movement of learning, a movement that moves along the essential passageway. Further, this story offers the opportunity to grasp what is meant when we say mindfulness, being possessed by the spirit of freedom, manifest in the movement along this passageway. The turning as a returning occurs precisely when the visitors are astounded and confounded, and thereby appear as strangers. Heraclitus' comportment, abiding in the mundane and ordinary, turns them around to themselves, and this returns them to what was already their own, namely their project of learning. They are turned around and see themselves as ones ready and willing to learn, to join the sage. When turning them around, Heraclitus draws them into the bearing of existence. Appropriately, they see themselves as strangers when standing at the threshold, when they are beckoned by the extraordinary appearing within the ordinary. This beckoning is a reckoning, a revelation of the truth of their project. In this moment of reckoning, they stand on the threshold, the portal through which they pass in order to become part of and thereby complete the abode of learning. They stand outside and in this moment leap beyond themselves into the ecstatic location of learning. This leap is the fulfillment of their project. In their turning, they are projected beyond what they had taken for granted as real. Their image of the sage, akin to the shadow of the cave wall, and are returned to what is most essentially their own, freedom. But this return is possible because they have already projected themselves along the path of learning. They have prepared themselves for the leap beyond to the ecstatic location of existence, which they receive in the beckoning invitation of Heraclitus' poetic saying, "Here too the gods come to presence." Quote, "To free oneself for a binding directedness is possible only by being free for what is opened up in an open region. Such being free points to the heretofore uncomprehended essence of freedom. The openness of comportment as the inner condition of possibility, of correctness, is grounded in freedom. The essence of truth is freedom." And that's where the meditation from May the 2nd ends. And so that's a quotation from Heidegger. And as I've mentioned in some past meditations, I have these what I call, stones that I drop in I imagine a stone being dropped in a pond, and the pond is very still. Drop the stone, all these rings, flow out from where the stone was dropped. And I've been talking about quotations and concepts and words as these sort of stones that I drop and follow through. This is one of them. This quotation I just read from Heidegger that ends with the essence of truth's freedom. And here I come back and I give the entire quotation, which is, let me read it again because it's kind of a long one and it's kind of complicated. To free oneself for a binding directedness is possible only by being free for what is opened in an open region. Such being free points to the heretofore uncomprehended essence of freedom. The openness of comportment as the inner condition of the possibility of correctness is grounded in freedom. The essence of truth is freedom. That is a wallop of a quotation from Heidegger. So it starts so, and all of this is meant to capture what I've said in this meditation, I suppose, by talking about how the emphasis here now is on the strangers that arrived to Heraclitus, that they're already on their way to learning, right? That they projected themselves towards Heraclitus as the sage. Now that's all clear, right? That they were going to Heraclitus because he's the sage, he's the philosopher, and they want to go learn from him. But what they didn't anticipate was being thrown off by the ordinariness, right? And that they find him in the mundane. So they go to Heraclitus, they experience something very ordinary, very mundane. That they didn't anticipate. But what ends up happening is that they are surprised and thrown off and confused by his appearance in this ordinary situation. And that, in fact, is what they were really anticipating. That's the point, right? That they really were anticipating is to be placed into thinking. What they didn't realize is that they were going to be placed into thinking by encountering Heraclitus in this very mundane and very ordinary situation. And so the notion here of the Heidegger is that to free oneself for a binding directedness is possible only by being free for what is open in the open region. Could have left it at that, because that's really key, right? So the binding directedness is exactly what I've been calling the evocative saying. It's the pointing that happens when learning gets underway. So the sage directs, right, the learning, or gets it underway. Well, directs it both in the sense of orchestrating it, like a director of an orchestra, but also points to it. And so what Heidegger's saying is you have to be free in order to experience that binding directedness, and you have to be free precisely for what is opened up in the open region. And so what I'm suggesting here is that they were freed for that because they anticipated something happening with Heraclitus, but they were also freed and prepared because they weren't prepared, right? So that's part of this twofold play of the truth of concealment and the truth of appearance, that the truth of what was concealed was the strangeness and the uncanny that they were going to experience. They didn't know how it was that they were going to experience it, and that was what was concealed, and they were freed in a way by that concealment. Okay, well, I hit 9 minutes, and I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to lose what I've recorded. And that's it for this day, May the 2nd, 2014. Originally recorded May the 2nd, May the 2nd, 2004.